Hi, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again. If it's your first time, I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. If it's not your first time and you've been maybe following for a little while, I want to say welcome back. If you have been subscribing to my channels, you've been noticing some different changes here and there. We're in the middle of a whole rebranding, so if you have not already signed up for our newsletter on the findingyourglow.com site, I want to encourage you to do so. We are, like I said, we're going to have a new website. There's new socials coming and all that. But if we have your information, we can keep you in the loop and you won't miss a thing, right? So that leads me to what I want to talk about today, which is starting over, right? So like I said, if you've been following me for any length of time, you've noticed some shiftings the last few years for sure. You've noticed me bouncing around from country to country and all that kind of stuff. But you've probably really seen some changes the last few months, in addition to me changing my name, which is now Samantha Sarah Anne. And I figured if I'm gonna we're gonna keep going with this, I should probably tell you what the hell's going on around here, right? So my name has changed. I've changed my name to Samantha Sarah Anne. I've actually legally changed it to Samantha Sarah Anne as of 2 days ago. February 21st was the date that my court-appointed name change went through. So I am now officially Samantha Sarah Anne. And some of you might be asking why I changed my name at all, or how I came up with that name, or any number of questions. And honestly, if you've got questions, shoot them over to me. I'll leave a link where you can shoot me questions and I'll be happy to answer them. Because if you're having the question, I'm sure other people are having it too, right? No dumb questions. So I changed my name because I started over the last couple of years through prophetic release from trusted sources. My name that I am being called in heavenly places is no longer Shannon Rollins. And there's no shade to Shannon Rollins at all, just like there was no shade to Shannon Turner when I changed my name when I got married. And someone asked me this question. They're like, why did you change your name? You didn't like it anymore? And I said, that couldn't be further from the truth. I lived that name and I'd lived that identity, you know? Our names are our identities, you know, and that's why when you look at texts of old, you see that people are very careful about the names that they name their children. It's because what's attached to their name is their identity and who they are expected to be in the earth and what assignment that they're expected to fulfill while they're here on this earth, right? Nowadays, names are a little more flexible, they're a little more loose. And so you don't really see necessarily the import and the importance of naming your child something specific, something that has a destiny attached to it. But that's what names are. Names are identities. And my name, Shannon Turner, which is my maiden name, fulfilled an identity that I occupied until I got married to my beloved Jermaine Rollins. And when the time was right for me to change my name then, he was very patient and let me go through my process. And I decided, you know, that this is the person I wanted to be. And there was an entire life that was associated with that name change that Shannon Rollins had access to, that Shannon Turner never had access to. And so over the last couple of years, I've had prophetic voices speaking into my life, apostolic voices speaking into my life that have revealed the name that heaven is calling me. And that is now Samantha Sarah Anne. All three names have specific relevance. And all three names have specific identities that attract a kind of life and certain aspects of life and unlock certain doors in this life and in my spiritual walk that neither Shannon Rollins nor Shannon Turner could access, right? So that's how that name came about. And what it has signified is a starting over. You know, all too often we walk around through this life and we are dragging around our entire past. We're dragging around our entire history. The good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent. It's just a trainload of stuff that we've got tied to our backs that we're dragging through this life. And yeah, we may offload some things here and there. We may find ourselves, in therapy, I hope, or having some kind of release as we are either spending time with the Spirit of God or spending time with ourselves in a meditative space. There are different kinds of releases that we can experience. But a lot of us, a lot of the time, are dragging around a lot of our past, and we don't know how to get rid of it. And the only way that you can really get rid of it is to start over. And that is one thing that I have found personally in my walk with God and my walk of faith that has been a consistent theme. And my spiritual father said it really well. He said, you don't have to be any kind of way. You can choose right now, right where you are, that you want to be a different kind of way, that you want to be a different kind of person. And you can release that into the atmosphere and ask your heavenly attendants to help you become that person and help you make those changes. And you'll find help to make those turns and make those changes, right? And so when you're trying to figure out how to go about, jettisoning yourself from a lifetime of maybe pain, a lifetime of shame. I believe personally in doing the work of healing and getting under there. I've certainly been doing that myself for the last several years, which is a testament to what these changes are that are occurring even now and starting over even now, and the ability to start over. I went through an intensive healing time and an intensive healing experience, and I honestly have just started a new intensive time of healing and a new intensive time of being delivered of things that have plagued me from a time when I was too young to know what was what, too young to have a choice in the matter, too young to have a voice in the matter. And those things are resident on the inside of me. And I am, now that I've had a taste of that healing, I'm going after it with everything that I possibly can. I'm like, how much healing can I get? How much freedom can I walk in? And that is what starting over is. How much freedom can you walk in? So I'm not a quick fixer like, hey, just change your name and everything will be different. No, there was intensive, very tear-filled sessions and weeks and weeks and months and years of intensive, deep work to unearth those inner child traumas, those inner wounds, those issues that occurred before you're old enough to really know what to do with them, That happened with me, that transpired with me. And now I'm on the other side of this thing. And now there's a new identity that is emerging. And that is Samantha Sarah Anne, that's starting over. And so a lot of times you can spend just an inordinate amount of time on just trying to rehash and resolve and, piece apart every tiny detail of what happened back in the day. And while I believe that there is value in doing the inner healing work, I believe that you can get into a paralysis of analysis where you are stuck in a place forever or for far too long, really, rehashing the same things and never coming into a solution. And those kind of things, I believe sometimes you just have to set on fire and just, start over again. And so this starting over, for me, seasons of starting over always are accompanied with hair shifts. I don't know what shifts, if you're out there having shifts, I don't know what kind of shifts are happening with you, but whenever God is signifying a change with me, he always starts with my hair. And it's usually like I start feeling a shift is coming. I don't really know what it is. I don't know what it looks like. And usually I get paired with someone who has some kind of vision and the skills to match it, to be able to interpret and extrapolate what God is saying in a spiritual realm and manifest it in a natural realm. And so for many, many, many years, it had been one of my dearest friends in the world, Apostle Sheila, who has been the prophet and the interpreter, if you will, of what God is saying in a spiritual sense for what the shift and the change needs to be for the season that I find myself coming into. And most recently, God has started to introduce new people to help make those interpretations too. And I'm grateful for it all because, my God, we'd never be here, right? You know, you gotta always be grateful for what has come and for the new that's coming, because in all of it is the mysteries of you being revealed, right? And so these changes that have been occurring over these last seasons have been profound, and they've been marked each time by hair shifts, right? And so a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half or so ago, you know, I started talking to my dear friend, Sheila, and I was telling her that I felt a new shift was coming, you know, and we had been going blonde for several years, you know. She got me in my first weave, you know, made me stop terrorizing my husband about my hair. But she got me into my first weave, and she's been like this person that's helped me evolve. And so we've done blonde for several years now. I think this is like year 5. But I started feeling like I needed to go longer in length, and short and straighter in texture, and lighter in color, lighter and lighter. We've been going lighter. And thanks to Beyonce, this is not such a weird thing, you know. But I told her that at the time I was having a really hard time, because at the same time I started to feel this shift to go into an even lighter shade, I was also coming into a new experience and a new revelation of what it is to be a Black woman, and to be a Black woman living in America, and how I had walked on another line and another reality for many years of being the token, which I talk about in my blog Skin from 2023. So if you want to check that out. That was a wonderful labor of love. But it talks about how for many years I had absorbed the idea that the less Black I could appear and the less Black I could present myself in corporate environments, the more accepted and the more acceptable I was. And I championed the same thing in other people. And how, like, over the last couple of years, especially after George Floyd was murdered, that my understanding of who I am as a Black woman started undertaking a change and a metamorphosis. And I started coming into more touch with what it is to be a Black woman and inhabiting my skin more so than I ever had before, right? Not that I was running around thinking I was in La La Land, but there's a degree of veneer you put on to be able to navigate certain non-Black, non-POC spaces, right? And that was my reality for a lot of my life, and especially my corporate life. But now that I'm not in that corporate life, that's not my reality. And so now I'm experiencing another reality, and that is coming into and inhabiting and being more comfortable with accepting myself as to who I am and who I've always been, regardless of the approval or disapproval of others, right? And so as I was coming into touch with all of that, one of the things that Sheila and I talked about was, you know, am I regressing into a place where I'm trying to be less Black or more, you know, white, or, you know, more acceptable in white spaces? And she ministered so beautifully to me. Oh my God, it was so great. You know, at the time I shared with her about how I used to, when I was a kid, my mom was a singer, and my stepfather was a musician, is a musician. And, you know, I was like 9, 10 years old, and they had a band, and they had jam sessions at the house all the time. And so musicians from, you know, every walk of life, like creme de la creme, like really great musicians, would come to our house and do jam sessions at night. And they'd be like, go to bed. And I'd go to pretend like I would go to bed. And instead I would like throw on this robe that had this matching, nightgown, and I would throw the robe over my head, and I'd pop out of the double doors onto the roof of our apartment. We had this giant apartment in Hollywood. And I would dance out on the roof under the moonlight with this robe on my head. And it was like my mom would catch me and she'd be like, "Oh God, Shannon," right? My little daughter, my little ballerina. But I would dance to their music while they were jamming out all the time. And I always wanted to have long flowing hair, right? As I got a little older, and started, finding myself in AP honors classes and finding myself, the only little black kid or little black girl in nearly all of my classes while growing up, it started to feel more shameful to desire to want to have long blonde hair. And honestly, I carried that shame around with me for a while until I saw that Whoopi Goldberg skit about the long, luxurious blonde hair. She understood, she tapped into the desire that all of us that were growing up in the time when we didn't really see a lot of people of color reflected to us by the images that we saw, whether they were in the newspaper or television or movies. They just weren't really there. We live in a different time now, and that time is changing more and more, thank God, but they weren't there really then. And Whoopi Goldberg tapped into that when she did that skit, and she tapped into the desire that all of us black girls had at that time, which was to be white and have blonde hair.
This is my long, luxurious blonde hair.
And the fact that we couldn't be white and we couldn't have blonde hair was this deep source of pain that we all carried and never really talked about. But she talked about it in the middle of a skit, and she touched us all and told us all that we were seen and that we were heard and that we were understood and that we were loved and accepted, And so when I was talking with Sheila and she ministered to me that day, she ministered the same balm to my wounded soul, because what she said was that, in response to me inquiring as to whether or not I was regressing into a less evolved form by desiring and seeing myself coming into this new look, she said that that Black beauty comes in all forms. And she said that it's our freedom and our obligation to fully express however we want to express, because we are survivors. And she gave me permission to explore who I was and to start over and to start again. Good friend. Start over and start again, and to explore different facets of who I found myself to be, and have the freedom to stretch my arms out and to experience what I was experiencing and journey through my journey and process through my process. And she gave me permission to change. And the gift that exploded to be in my heart is unlike anything that I had felt up until that point. And she'd said some humdingers over the years up until then, but that one, the immediate freedom, the freedom from fear, the freedom from shame, the freedom from the fear of rejection, the freedom that it ignited in my heart was just, it felt like a hot, warm, what it felt like? It felt like a chocolate lava cake exploding. When you cut into it, it explodes and it's chocolate that starts oozing. That's how my heart felt. It felt like it exploded and started to ooze with healing and with transformation and with love and acceptance. And so in that same spirit, I want to invite all women, and especially women of color, especially brown women, especially Black women. I want to invite all of us to keep on shining and to keep on expressing and to keep on starting over as many times as we need to, and whatever that looks like for us, because indeed, we all are survivors. So cheers to starting over. In that same vein, I want to announce that I am in the midst of releasing my first book, Finding Your Glow. We are in the process of having the book cover designed and the final edit done. And that book, Finding Your Glow, is all about the process that got me unstuck. And that was indeed my most transformational starting over that I've ever had in my life. But it wasn't the last starting over. And I doubt that this starting over that I'm experiencing now is going to be the last. But I'll tell you what, every evolution, especially walking side by side in the hands of God and under the love and the protection of a loving creator, these evolutions are getting better and better. So I invite you to continue this journey with me and to find someone to grab a hold and give them permission to start over, and find someone who will grab hold of you and give you permission to start over too, because we all deserve it. And there's joy and there's gladness and there's more life and more love on the other side of it. God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. Have a wonderful day, and may the peace of God reign over your hearts and your minds today and every day. And may everything that you touch turn to gold in your hand. And may all of your relationships be fruitful, be loving, be peaceful, come into resolution, come into wholeness, and may you find that elusive thing that you feel like you're never ever going to lay hold of. May you find that in your soon coming days. Amen. Have a great day. God bless.